morning I lift up the leaders of this community to you. I know that our leaders' lives are in your hand, so I ask you to guide them in the way you would have them go. Lord, I pray that you would surround our leaders with wise counsel, men and women with moral integrity who place your agenda and the good of this community above their own, and whose motives are for that which is just and right. I pray that you would give our leaders discernment, understanding, and knowledge so that our county may know stability. I give you thanks for our leaders and thank you for working in and through their leadership so that we might lead peaceable lives in godliness, humility, and honesty. By your Spirit, fill us with your courage. Help us even today to do that one good thing that we can, to follow you in your adventure for justice in this world. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the salute to the flag of our great nation. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Supervisor Harper. The next item of business will be the public comment period open time, and I will state that this will include open time for the Shasta County Water Agency as well, but also let you know that we are pulling the first item, SDC 1, to relate the calendar for that meeting. Anyone who wishes to speak during this time should come up and give your name. Each speaker is allocated 3 minutes to speak. Comments should be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the board. Pursuant to the Brown Act, board discussion or action cannot be taken on open time matters other than to receive the comments and if deemed necessary to refer the subject matter to the appropriate departments to follow and or to schedule the matter on subsequent agenda. I have 2 requests at this time to speak during open time. Mr. Randall Faulkner, followed by Ed Merritt.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, taxpayers. My name is Randall Faulkner. 2 years ago, I ran for Shasta County Auditor. In the next many months, as my schedule allows, I'll be coming to speak to you, explaining to you why I ran for Auditor, including excerpts from 3 different grand jury reports and an independent CPA limited scope management audit of the Shasta County Auditor Controller's Office. That audit was recommended by the grand jury, requested by the Board of Supervisors at the time, and paid for by the taxpayers. Yet much of the findings and recommendations of those 4 reports were totally ignored and, in the opinion of many, simply brushed under the rug and hidden from the public. My upcoming presentations to this board will include specifics of many events that occurred during my campaign. They will include physical threats, destruction of political signs by a 59-year-old businessman, disappearing United States Postal Service mail, county employee disruption of political debates, and many other items. Today I want to tell you a little bit about me, and so you'll know where I'm coming from when I make my presentations to you. I'm a retired CPA, a fraud auditor. My last job with the federal government was with an organization known as Operation Mongoose, a fraud detection and deterrent organization within the Department of Defense. I accepted an early retirement offer in 2003 after being diagnosed with throat cancer. With God's grace, I successfully completed throat surgery and radiation treatment at the end of 2003. I was told that the odds of my type of cancer returning in the first 2 years was 20 to 40%. My wife and I made the decision to move to my family's home in Palisadro. If I was going to die, I'm going to die in my home in Palisadro. As my health improved, I wanted to do something for my community. I wanted to go back to work. I went to work for Shasta County Auditor's Office in 2008. what I witnessed in the Shasta County Auditor's Office was very disturbing. To continue, I am a U.S. Army Vietnam-era veteran and have more than a dozen immediate family members who are veterans, including veterans of World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. I'm a husband, a father, and most importantly, a Christian. I believe our country and our communities are in the most dangerous times in my lifetime. Now that I am aware of what's happening in our local governments, I cannot sit idly by and let it happen. If I did, I'm just as guilty as those perpetrating this scam on the people. If the sacrifices of my family and our veterans and our founding fathers are to be justified, we must stand up, or their sacrifices are not worth it. They should have just enjoyed the good life and passed on. The only way their sacrifices are worth it is if we pass this great experiment with freedom on to our children. I'd much rather spend my time here on earth, traveling the countryside playing senior softball. Instead, there is much work to be done, and I hope and pray you'll get on board to help us get it done. Good morning, and God bless.
Thank you. Mr. Eric?
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I spoke before during the air quality district meeting by the Board of Supervisors several months ago. I'd like to continue that subject, more on economic development of Shasta County than on air quality regarding electric vehicle infrastructure in Shasta County. As you may recall, I own an electric vehicle. When I was here several months ago, there were only several in Shasta County. I think there are several dozen now, as more people have been purchasing them. It's a 60-mile round trip for me, close to it, to here. And the reality is, in terms of air quality, each gallon of gas creates literally thousands of gallons of CO2. So in terms of air quality, it's an obvious mitigation measure. But I think the reason most people will be purchasing electric vehicles is the huge cost savings over buying gas. For a PG&E customer, that can cost as little as just a little over a cent a mile. For instance, my trip today, here and back, 55 miles, is probably about 75 cents. RU does not allow time of use rates, so the costs are approximately 2 to 3 times as higher than PG&E currently, but that will undoubtedly change. Okay, the problem is, the reason that power is as a fuel is so cheap is that everyone who has an electric car has access to their own fuel station. You plug it into the wall at home. Better yet, you put in a 240-volt outlet and you can charge it more rapidly. It'll take me about 2.5 hours to recharge after I drive home tonight. I come home, I plug it in, it's all set by timer, sends me a little email at 3:30 this morning saying it is charged between 1 and 2:30. Entirely adequate for most of your driving purposes, and it's very cheap. The problem, of course, is that I don't own an electrical outlet at any distance from my home. So you need public charging infrastructure, specifically fast public charging infrastructure. If you go online, you can find records of the EV project for California, I-5 EV project. Several years ago, 3 states put into the pipeline projects to electrify I-5 with fast charging stations all the way from Mexico to Canada. Briefly, California is lagging far behind the other states. And finally, a few weeks ago, there was a settlement, if you recall, from the Enron debacle of 10 years ago of one of their co-conspirators, Dynegy, which is going to provide funds, specifically out of a $110 million settlement, several million dollars of those funds are dedicated to fast charging projects in California, 200 stations. The problem is the preliminary plan is to place them in the Bay Area, Southern California, and San Joaquin Valley. Obviously, we're not on the list. And the point is, unless someone from Northern California government agencies participates in the process, and I'm here to suggest perhaps that's the Board of Supervisors' role, we will not be on the list. And people in Northern California, while electric vehicle is perfectly adequate for commuting, or trips up to 75 to 150 miles, There will be, right now there are charging stations planned from in Sacramento and Ashland, but we're in the middle of a dead zone. And unless somebody does something, 2 years, anywhere from 6 months to a year from now, the rest of the West Coast will have access to this. We will not, and that will have extreme detrimental effects, not only on tourism, but economic development for the region. Thank you. Just one more quick thing. Whole Earth Festival is on the 28th. I don't know if you have an announcement here. I'll be there with an electric vehicle to answer more questions. I hope everyone here will be there for the other displays. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Merrick. That's all the requests I have at this point for public comment period. Does anyone else wish to speak at this time?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead and, sir, come on up.
Good morning. My name is Mike Ricks. You supervisors recently gave special recognition to our Vietnam veterans, as everyone rightly should. I would like to take this time to reflect some of my thoughts for those present. First off, my hat is off to all who have served, who have and are serving this country in the military. In thinking about our military personnel, I can't help but wonder what our service people in Afghanistan are thinking, or what would some of you think about the following if you were fighting in Afghanistan. Your family won't receive FEMA, or in parentheses, President aid for tornado devastation, when the US of A is giving aid to minorities in this country and aid around the world while we go broke, or are broke. The Kenya president singles out your religion. Our various governments are passing more restrictions on our people in various ways. Environmentalists are running a lot of this country, and so are those for illegals. There are some conflicting laws and judges making laws. You have served multiple tours there in Afghanistan or elsewhere. You don't know who is and who isn't the enemy, and you can't shoot without orders even when you know who the enemy is. Just two of many likes of Vietnam. There are those who want amnesty for illegals, and the illegals keep coming. We already gave illegals amnesty once under President expletive Reagan. We also previously gave amnesty to those who went to Canada during the Vietnam era. Do you see a pattern here? Your sibling can't get into college due to minority and foreigner preference. Your sibling, who may be a very, very good athlete, can't play sports in a college. And if you watch college sport, you'll know what I'm talking about. Your commander-in-chief's wife prefers her kind of people. See who she associates with, and watch the media in Hollywood very closely. Your country goes deeper in debt and commingles money designated for specific uses. Your country bails out big businesses, not small businesses. You are fighting in a third world, landlocked country who ran out the British and the Russians. So much for learning old and recent world history. I guess I should continue this to the next meeting?
You should sum up, yes.
Well, I guess the best way to do it is I ask you supervisors to tell our state and Washamania reps to send us the money for all laws and regulations passed in the past 31 years. If not, then we won't enforce them in this district of this country. Thank you for this time in the Hunger Game for freedoms we had once upon a time. I could go on.
Your time is up, sir. Thank you. I have a request from Patricia Heinzen, please.
Good morning. I'd like to ask that you make more copies of the agenda so we can all have one. I'd like to talk about the Northern Sacramento Integrated Water Management Plan that I believe will be discussed today among you as to whether or not how you feel about it. That's what I understand from Mr. Modi last evening. Want to share with you what my impressions of it are. I have gone to numerous meetings and I have read the draft goals and objectives. They do not bear any resemblance to the questionnaire, and the questionnaire was only filled out by several hundred people in this region. So it's not representative, and there's no way you can get from the questionnaire to the draft goals and objectives. We don't want a regional government governing our water, and we would hope that you would feel that way too. There must be a way that you can figure out how to best manage our water without going regional. I feel strongly that we have the most perfect form of government on the face of the earth, which relies on control of the people at the local level, which is city and county, and then from there state and federal. To institute an infrastructure at a regional level is not consistent with the most control held by the people. With only one elected official on the board, one elected official from Shasta County, that is not representative enough. People say, well, wait a minute, you voted for this because the majority of voters passed Prop 84. We didn't vote for those draft goals and objectives, let me tell you. Also, if the viewpoint of elected officials is to, gee, we need to grab this because there's water involved for water projects we want to do, my understanding is there isn't any money in it. And with money, getting money from the state or the federal government, I don't need to tell you that there's always strings attached. So if there's no money, it's not going to accomplish the needs of keeping the water here, which I believe, and it's implementing an infrastructure that we don't want. Why do it? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any other speakers at this time. Okay, we'll move on to the regular calendar. Consider adoption of proclamation for the Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month, and Supervisor Hartman is going to do this presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Modi. Pleased to read the Shasta County Board of Supervisors proclamation, Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month, April 2012. Whereas, as a community, we have a responsibility to value, nurture, and protect our children to help ensure that they are given every opportunity to reach their full potential. And the prevention of child abuse and neglect is a key component of protecting the safety of children. Scientific studies have revealed that the stress of intense adverse experiences, like child maltreatment, can lead to permanent changes in a child's developing brain, negatively impacting the child's immune system, learning, and memory. And scientific studies confirm a direct link between adverse childhood experiences and adult health, including significantly greater risk for substance abuse, suicide, cancer, heart disease, and other serious illness. Prevention of child abuse requires a multi-generational approach of addressing the needs of parents and children, and strengthening family skills and helping to build protective factors can reduce the risk of abuse and neglect. And effectively addressing child abuse in our community requires partnerships among families, organizations, and the community at large. And through public awareness activities, all citizens can become better informed about child abuse and its prevention, as well as consider active roles to support parents and children in our community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Shasta County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaim April 2012 as Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month in Shasta County, and calls upon all organizations, community members, and businesses to increase their participation in our efforts to prevent child abuse, thereby supporting and strengthening families in the communities in which we live. This is signed by Chairman of the Board, Leonard Modi, the 10th day of April, 2012. Move approval.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hartman and board members, for your attention to the issue of child abuse prevention. Child abuse remains, unfortunately, a very significant issue within our community. We're all aware of these economic times and how stressful they are for many of us, for many of our families. We hear often on the news about how the economy is impacting where people live and what they buy, but we hear less often about where those families live when they don't live in those homes anymore. And we hear less often about how the stress is impacting how we treat each other, including within our families. I'd like to take a moment this morning to acknowledge one of our internal staff, Nancy Boland, who is the manager for our Health and Human Services Agency Child Abuse Investigation and Voluntary Services Unit. Ms. Boland has been involved since 2002 in championing and nurturing the involvement of parents in the child welfare system to play an active role in supporting other parents. Additionally, she has recognized, as I do, that these parents are a tremendous asset to our system in terms of helping us to understand what parents need in order for us to be able to be more effective in our efforts. Additionally, this morning it's my pleasure to introduce Rochelle Neal and Denise Wilson. Rochelle is Deputy Director of the Child Abuse Prevention Coordinating Council of Shasta County, known as CAPC. Denise is a parent and co-facilitator of the Parent Leadership Advisory Group, PLAG. Thank you.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Maxine. As Maxine said, my name is Rochelle Neal, and I am the Deputy Director with the Child Abuse Prevention Coordinating Council here in Shasta County. And April is Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month. In March, we received a small grant from First 5 Shasta to assist us with our education and outreach efforts for this month. We have a new ad out, Patience and Praise, Keep Plenty on Hand, which you can see in print publications, online, on the radio, and on a new street banner. In addition, this month we will be hosting our annual Tri-Tip Barbecue Lunch on April 24th. Those tickets are available online at our website, shastacapc.org. Asphalt Cowboys are barbecuing, so it promises to be delicious. In addition, this month we have launched a new Facebook page, really aimed at providing parenting education, community resources, education about the protective factors, adverse childhood experiences. I encourage all of you to take a look at that page, and it's a great way to follow us throughout the year and what we're doing to prevent child abuse in our community. Our staff, AmeriCorps members, and community partners work tirelessly every month around child abuse prevention efforts. In 2011, we had 60 AmeriCorps members dedicated to serving families and children in our community. 20 of those parent partners served over 795 families and provided over 5,000 home visits. Those home visits included evidence-based parenting education through Triple P and Safe Care, linkages to other community resources, and caring support for that most tough job of parenting. We had 40 AmeriCorps members serving in school-based and after-school programs, providing youth development, mentoring, homework help, and being that other caring adult in children's lives. We served 500 of those youth. Our Anderson Teen Center serves 25 youth a day. And as Maxine said, we co-facilitate our Parent Leadership Advisory Group, and that group consists of families and parents that have somehow been involved with the Children and Family Services system. They offer support to other families going through the system and provide us very valuable feedback on system improvement, and really being a leader in our community. In February, one of our outstanding parent leaders, Denise Wilson, who is here today to accept the proclamation with us, received the Parent Leader of the Year award at the state conference in Ontario. And we were so very proud of her. We have a short video clip today about Denise's life and where she's come from and where she is at today that we'd like to share with you.
And while you're getting that prepared, I'd just like to let everyone know we do have additional agendas in the back now if you need to go back and get one.
I ended up carrying those adversities as a child into my adulthood, and I ended up doing drugs, and I was a drug addict for 25 years, and I ended up losing my children to CFS. What's meant for bad can be turned into good, and like I said, I didn't know who I was. I didn't feel I existed. I didn't feel like I was important, and when my children got taken, I felt my heart for the first time. And it was a hard process to go through, but I needed to experience the pain. It doesn't have to be negative because we lost our children. It doesn't have to be bad. We are at our strongest point right now. Our children are safe with foster care or family. And this is our greatest opportunity in life, is to get to know who we are and why we're here. It's hard, and I lean on a lot of people to help me see what it's like, show me the direction that I need to go, and I have an open heart and an open mind, and I just want to continue to grow and be the best parent that I can be.
Our second awardee is Denise Wilson. Denise is an amazing asset to Shasta County Parent Leadership Program, Children and Family Services, the Child Abuse Prevention Council, and most importantly, the families. Congratulations, Denise.
Wow. I feel that Shasta County has given me a voice, and Shasta County has heard me. So I feel that it was teamwork. We worked together in this community to help parents. It's a great honor. Thank you, Shasta County, for nominating me and believing in me.
Well, wow. I just would like to say welcome to my world, and thank you for having me here. And, you know, I couldn't be a parent leader in Shasta County if I didn't have people believe in me, lift me up when I couldn't walk, tell me that I was important when I didn't feel like I was. So I know I have to keep this short and brief, but this is bigger than Ontario because it's in my county. A county that failed me as a child, but helped my children out of child abuse because I followed my parents' footsteps. I would like to let you all know that even though I got my children back, I may have graduated my drug programs, but let me show you how many people I still lean on today. I'm not giving up. It's not the end of my life. If anything, I'm here to help parents understand that they have a worth in life. If it wasn't for my God and visions of the cross, I wouldn't be a leader here today. And I'd like you to recognize Steve and Tammy, Nigarelli, could you please stand up? Please stand. And I'd like the rest of the people to stand up as well that has dealt with me and has helped me, and we're walking this journey together. Please stand. Everybody. This is what parent leadership is all about. We're teamworks. Thank you.
Denise is outstanding, and we are very proud of her great success. So I would just like to thank you today for your time and for proclaiming that April is Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month. Thank you.
Supervisor Hartman?
Thank you. Denise? It's my pleasure to represent my colleagues on the board today, and I want to thank you for sharing your story and congratulate you on your success as a parent and a member of our community. I believe that our most important duty as a community is protecting our young people, our children, and your example will help so many that you probably don't realize what you are doing by being here today and by working with all of these wonderful people to protect our children. You're doing a wonderful job, and we appreciate you and wish you all the best of luck, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hartman, and thank you, Denise, for coming today, and you should be very proud of what you've accomplished so far.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to the consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They may be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested person may request an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and consideration. I don't have any advance requests to move anything from the consent calendar. Moved by Supervisor Hawes.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Keel. Thank you. Any discussion? I guess there is no discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Shasta County Board of Supervisors will recess and will convene as the Shasta County Water Agency. The Shasta County Board of Supervisors does not receive any additional compensation or stipend for acting as the Shasta County Water Agency. The first item, which has been pulled to the regular calendar, is a report on the Northern Sacramento Valley IRWM goals and objectives. Mr. Wiedemeyer.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Eric Wiedemeyer, Supervising Engineer with the Shasta County Water Agency. In 2001, the Redding Area Water Council released the Redding Basin Water Resources Management Plan Phase 2B report, which established 7 long-term goals and 5 core elements that we believed were essential to maintaining our water supplies here in the Redding Basin. Since then, to maintain the viability of our plan, the Water Agency started working with the Northern Sacramento Valley Integrated Regional Water Management Group, which has just started their process of developing a plan. And in January, they released their draft goals and objectives and have been receiving written comments and will receive written comments through this afternoon. And I've also asked members of the Redding Area Water Council to compare those goals and objectives to their own mission statements and goals and comment if they feel the need. Meanwhile, the North Sac Valley IRWM Technical Advisory Committee received verbal comment at a meeting on the goals and objectives in March, and will also next Thursday receive more comment on the goals and objectives. And then there's a special board meeting of the North Sac Valley IRWM on May 5th to additionally receive, well, still more comments. The matter before the board today is whether the board finds the draft goals and objectives to be sufficiently like our own to let the process continue as is, or whether the board would like to force the issue some with a letter. And I'll take questions.
Well, just for clarification, then the board, the supervisor today, is not adopting or approving any actual goals and objectives. We're just giving our comments to whether or not we think that these are in conformance with our current Reading Area Water Basin goals.
Yes.
And also, I believe he attempted to have a meeting with the Reading Area Water Council, but it's not a sufficient number of members or something.
Yeah, only 3 of 11 showed up, so we didn't have a quorum.
Other questions by the board? I do have speaker requests as well. None at this time, so we'll start with those who wish to come before us. The first speaker is Charles Alexander, be followed by Sally Raposa.
Thank you for the opportunity here today to address the board on the question of whether or not to accept the goals of the Northern Sacramento Valley Integrated Water Management Plan. Here's a question. Has this plan even been written yet? And if not, why are we being asked to go along with the goals of a plan about which one can only at this point speculate? Consider this. If the goals of an unwritten plan be first accepted prior to the drafting of said plan, then the difficulty with which a given plan may be rejected goes up considerably, does it not? Is that therefore why we are being asked first to accept the draft goals of a plan prior to the plan being drafted at all? Kind of seems sort of self-evident, does it not? Consider this. A recent March 28 forum wherein the draft goals of the Reading Basin Water Resources Management Plan was agendized to be discussed, there was not a quorum at the meeting, so nothing was voted on. Yet here we are proceeding as though, for all intents and purposes, the draft goals had been somehow unanimously approved at the March 28 forum when there was not even a quorum there. What's up with that? Last January, Butte County's Assistant Director of Resource and Water Conservation on TV cited as an example of what the integrated plan might include recycled water. Now, what's the source of material for recycled water? Sewage. Here's an interesting juxtaposition. Last March 27th, when agenda item R4 was under consideration, who was it that got accused of wanting everyone to drink caca water merely because of opposition to health and all policies agenda? Yet here we have somebody in Butte County who apparently really does want people to have to drink caca water instead of the water they now currently drink. Of course, she likely won't be accused of what she recommended so long as she's not oppositional to smoking ordinances, dietary curtailments, etc. Some of this stuff is already on page 11 of a certain climate action plan worksheet from the middle of last year. Now here's something to consider. Under the plan, are we going to be asked essentially to be drinking pee instead of tea? And what will be the state of the showers that we take under this yet to be drafted plan? Golden? And here's something else to consider. Gray water to wash clothes. Is anyone here aware of the quality generally of what typically sits in an RV's gray water holding tank? Ugh. And we would be expected to wash clothes in that. Even minimally, how minimal is minimal, treated, 'tis quite a repulsive thing to contemplate, is it not? Incidentally, Yellow County's Climate Action Plan on page 76 of the document also talks of a gray water as plan element. And all this so that even more water can be taken away from us via the peripheral canal, LA Aqueduct 2.0, or some other means. I have a better idea. Just say no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Sally Raposo will be followed by Gary Cadd.
Good morning, Supervisors. Thank you for allowing us to speak on this before you voted on it. As you know, I've been attending those water meetings down in Willows, and the last meeting we went to, for 3 hours, they agonizingly went through every word of 2 sections of this goals and objectives, making sure that all of the wording said exactly what they wanted it to say. And when we were done at noon, they still had 3 more sections to go. So I don't see how you can adopt a plan before it's even written. It's kind of like the Obamacare. Let's pass it and then find out what's in it. How can you vote on something that's not even written yet? It's just, you're not going to get what you want out of this plan. And it seems to me like when you go to regional planning, that this plan is, it just creates another layer of government that we the people can't seem to get through. We want to be able to have our people accountable to us. When we vote for you, we want to be able to not have to go to a regional board, but to our representatives to ask them questions and find out what's going on. The reason why we don't like regionalization is because it creates another layer of government, and it's not elected, and it's unaccountable to people. It's a manipulation that's designed to remove the sovereignty from our local government, and it provides for the grabbing of grants, and these grants all come with strings attached. You have to jump through hoops of climate change, it's underneath the Sustainable Communities Act. All of the things that are being implemented by these goals and objectives have to jump through those hoops. So, and then the money doesn't come complete with that. You have to search for other funding authority and dollars in order to complete your projects. So they're not totally funded. And Mr. Modi, last night at our meeting, you said that you would not vote for anything that we didn't have the money for. So here's a good chance to prove what you've said is true. Do not vote for this, the goals and objectives. Thank you.
Mr. Cadd, followed by Mr. Kirk.
Good morning, members of the board, staff, ladies and gentlemen. This is just another case of the board, under whatever hat, placing issues under the consent agenda. Your agenda clearly states that the following consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. Well, after last Wednesday's meeting, I'm pretty certain that this was known that this was going to be not routine and it would be controversial. So I think that'd probably be a really good idea if county staff would start putting issues on the regular agenda when they belong there instead of putting them on the consent agenda. Now, having said that, of course, we're talking about the Northern Sacramento Valley Integrated Regional Water Management, and I'll call it the board to start with. Then under the board is the Sacramento Valley Integrated Regional Water Management Technical Advisory Committee, TAC. And under the TAC has 5 members, I believe it's 5 members, of the TAC committee and a subcommittee that has gotten together with their consultant, which is West Yost. A rough draft, very rough draft, of the regional goals and objectives were produced by the subcommittee, the TAC subcommittee, and the consultant. The full TAC has had 1 working session considering the subcommittee and the consultant's regional goals and objectives. There are 5 sections at present, with at least 1 additional section to be added in the very near future. This is the climate change data management will have to be added to it. The TAC has completed the first 2 sections of those 5 sections at a meeting they had last month. They will consider the remaining 4 sections at their next meeting on April 19th. When the TAC completes the regional goals and objectives, there will be public comment period. At the end of this public comment period, then the regional goals and objectives will be considered by the full board. So we've got a process that they're going through here. The California Department of Water Resources is the governing body over the Sacramento Valley Integrated Regional Water Group. And DWR, I'll call them DWR, Department of Water Resources, is in the process of changing their rules as we speak. They have put a committee together, and they're changing the rules that are going to be governed under Prop 84, which is driving this issue. The future regional goals and objectives must comply with Prop 84 guidelines, or the Northern Sacramento Valley Integrated Regional Water Management Group will not be able to even apply, not to receive the money. You won't even be able to apply for future grant monies. The rough regional goals and objectives do not comply with DWR guidelines as written at this time. They are going to have some real changes in what's coming forward. At this point, the regional goals and objectives are nothing more than a rough draft of a subcommittee of a TAC committee and must be treated as such. This issue must be tabled until such time as the regional group has completed all their work and comply with the California Department of Water Resources. And I, for another one, don't like this regional government myself either. And I understand I've gone over my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Catt. Mr. Kirk?
Board members, everything everybody else is going to be saying here today is items I agree with on this here. It's another layer of government is what it is. On top of that, as Mr. Catt just said, the plan has not been approved yet, and the rules are changing as to what the plan is going to have to be, which means how can you look into saying we approve this when you have no idea what the new rules are going to be and what the actual plan is going to end up being? I mean, it's supposed to be local. I mean, our water is our water. It's not Southern California's, it's not the federal government's, it's our water. We need to handle things in our way, not to sit there and say, well, we're going to fix this so Southern California can have more in the future. We're going to fix this so Sacramento can have more in the future. We need to think of Shasta County itself and our tourism, our water resources, and all of this. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk. That's all the requests I have. So we'll bring it back to the board then. Mr. Wiedemeyer, do you want to address any of the questions first, or?
No, I don't think so.
Mr. Keel.
Mr. Wiedemeyer, for the sake of clarification, what is the significance of this proposed action that is before us this morning?
I'm just asking if the board wants to write a letter to, further clarify the Redding Basin's goals and objectives, or any other subjects that are important to them.
Yeah, I note on top of page 2 that you list some exceptions.
Yes.
Yeah. How significant are those exceptions?
Well, I don't believe they're very significant. We're planning to include in-depth write-ups along with the very short objectives. So I think that objective 1-4, when we actually get around to writing it, will contain sufficient discussion of conservation to encompass our basin plan or our basin goals. And similarly, there's a lot of agriculture, especially south of here, and they're not about using expensive treated water to put on their crops. What they want is to put, the right level of water quality.
Okay. From my perspective, I am disinclined to send a letter at this time, primarily because it seems premature to do that. And I take seriously some of the comments and my own observations that have been made this morning, in that why are we taking an initiative to comment on a document that we have not seen in its final form? And I guess I have reservations about doing that.
Thank you. I don't mind you applauding for your people, but the board members don't really need much applause. Thank you.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not used to it. It kind of scares us. County Council wanted to weigh in.
Yes, just very briefly. There were some discussions about in connection with another layer of government in the Regional Water Management Group. And just for clarification, the law that applies to the integrated regional water management groups and plans does specifically state that that law does not affect any powers granted to a local agency by any other law. So it doesn't change. The Board of Supervisors isn't abdicating any of its authority that it has already under law by participating in the regional water management group or plan. And also, the law also says that a regional water management group is not authorized to define or otherwise determine the water rights of any person. So those are areas that are outside, that's an area that's specifically outside the realm of the integrated regional water management group.
And those comments would apply to the cities as well?
Yes.
So for the benefit in the audience today, Mr. Cruz, could you give the actual citation so that they can make note of it?
Absolutely. Those are, I'm citing from California Water Code Section 10548 and California Water Code Section 10549.
Thank you.
Mr. Hawes.
Well, all of these are just ideas to help protect. Well, I say these, I don't know if, I think all of you have read these. I assume you've read these. And I think they're put in here in our suggestions to go into this report to protect the Reading area water. Isn't that right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We don't want to see a document written that totally forgets us. We're the source of the water here. Every one of these items portrays something that has something to do with our water and our water rights here, and that makes sure that Shasta County has what we need before anyone else takes any. I think that's what this is all about. I really do. And for us to stand back and not say anything and let them write it without any suggestions from Shasta County might be a mistake.
Thank you, Mr. Hawes. Supervisor Hartman.
Thank you. I agree with Supervisor Hawes. I believe we need to be involved. We have our water and our objectives, our goals. That's what this is all about, is what do we think is the best for our county, protecting our rights. And if we have the ability to pool our resources with our sister counties and water agencies in the North State to protect all of our rights, it's better. When we go to Sacramento on any issue, one little county doesn't necessarily get heard. But if we have the North State working together and protecting our citizens, in the long run, it will be better for all of us. And I think we can't just be isolated and sit back and let others dictate what happens to us.
Anyone else? I have a couple of questions and a couple of clarifications. It was stated that there's only one elected member from Shasta County on the IRWM board, and that's not correct. Larry Farr is elected member of Shasta Lake City Council, is on the board, and Missy MacArthur, elected member of the Reading City Council, is one of the alternates. So there are additional elected people from Shasta County who do serve on this board. The other thing I just want to bring up was they talked about how can we have goals and objectives without the plan. Actually, what have I been taught through all my schooling and stuff is you actually do your goals and objectives first to see what you want to accomplish, and then you build your plan around it to accomplish your goals and objectives. So I think I see it that you need to have goals and objectives first to know what your plan wants to be to accomplish your goals. So I think I just disagree with what was stated about that. Again, it was mentioned that we're adopting a plan or adopting the goals and objectives. I don't see any word about adoption anywhere in the report here. It seems to me you're asking for us to say if they generally conform to what the Reading Area Water Council wants to accomplish. And is that still? Okay. The other thing that came up was about grants, and that the IRWM won't be able to receive grants unless they do certain things to comply with the state requests, the DWR. And I believe you, Mr. Cadd, but quite frankly, that same requirements will go to the cities and counties if they apply for it. So if a city or a county applies for a grant, they're going to conform to the same request and have the same requirements to get the money. So I understand the concern there, and I agree with that. I just want to make sure people understand that it's, as was mentioned by county council, it doesn't take away from the counties and cities to act independently and to apply for grants, and when they do, they'll have to do the same, meet the same requirements. And I wanted to just clarify the one comment about saying I wouldn't spend any money. What I said is what Larry Lees has said many times, is the county won't spend money we don't have. But pretty much every project we have has some matching funds. And so we have to weigh our resources against our needs and decide if we have matching funds that are sufficient to apply for a grant. A perfect example is the new jail. It's a $33 million grant, but we'll need $2 million plus to, from county money to make that happen. So that's just something that we have to weigh as a decision and decide if that's the money we want to spend. So it's not just a case of not spending money at all. It's what we feel like we don't have in our bank. And so in this case, like in the jail situation, we're not going to borrow $2 million to build a jail if we were to do that. The reason I saw this meeting was coming forward was a chance for me as the representative for this board on the IRWM is to hear from my colleagues where they feel they might be on some of the situations, some of the goals and objectives that are coming forward, because obviously this will continue to be a discussion at these IRWM boards, and I want to make sure that I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues here when we go forward to make sure that our voice is heard. I do strongly believe that we need to protect our water rights in Northern California, and I will tell you that our colleagues from the other 5 counties have also said that same thing over and over. We are very concerned that we're going to be run over by the rest of the state. And I mentioned it even last night. There's 38 million people in California. There's only 500,000 that live above Sacramento. So where do you think all the votes are going to be? So in order for us to be heard and have a stronger voice and a bigger impact, we have to be bigger and stronger. And 1 county versus 6 counties doesn't, it just doesn't add up. So having 6 counties on board to promote protection of our water rights and use of our water here in Northern California is imperative. But I do have one question to follow up on. You weren't able to have the one meeting with the lack of a quorum. Do you look forward to try to have an additional meeting with our ROC members, our Reading Area Water Council members, to see if they are in agreement with this?
I polled the ROC members to see if they wanted to have another meeting between then and now, and there was no interest. However, the Reading Area Water Council will reconvene in the future to consider this.
Well, I am somewhat inclined to agree with Supervisor Kehoe that I would like to have a little more agreement from the ROC board that this is, what they're looking for, and so I'm a little concerned about that. Mr. Minturn?
Yes, to provide a little more background, the Reading Area Water Council was formed in 1998 and embarked on a series of studies. And the goals and objectives that are set forth at the very beginning of your staff report are the goals and objectives that came out of that planning process of the Reading Area Water Council. So the Reading Area Water Council spent years developing what's in the staff report. If I may read through these briefly.
Go ahead.
Perhaps that would shed some light. Provide affordable, high-quality water supplies to support a diversified and stable economy and preserve environmental values in the Reading Basin. Improve basin-wide, meaning the Reading Basin, water supply reliability under drought year hydrologic conditions and extended droughts. Improve local and regional control of water resources in the Reading Basin. Increase flexibility to use alternative sources of supply during droughts or emergencies. Preserve the autonomy of existing water purveyors to set rates and establish policies that are appropriate for their respective service areas. Develop regional guidelines to encourage efficient water use, and provide a planning framework and analytical tools to help facilitate ongoing regional water management decisions. These were the goals and objectives that were established back in 2001. And our question to the Reading Area Water Council that we hope to pose to them was whether this still accurately reflects what they want us to be out there advocating for. And what we see out of the Northern Sac Valley Board pretty much follows this, but Eric, Mr. Wiedemeyer pointed out two minor exceptions, omissions perhaps. And so we were coming before the Reading Area Water Council to see how much they wanted us to advocate for those two, and we come before the board today with the same idea. Whether over the past 11 years, perhaps goals and objectives have changed within the basin, but I would think the strong emphasis on local control, I think, is worth advocating for, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Supervisor Hartman, did you change your mind?
Yeah, back and forth. Do you have a feel for if or when we'll get that input from the Reading group?
Well, I think we got as much input as we could. The two major members were there, the Bella Vista Water District and the City of Reading, who are two of the main players. And of course, the Anderson Cottonwood Irrigation District has a representative as well. Stan Wanberg is on the, what is his role?
He's also on the board member of the North Sac Valley.
So he is a direct board member. So between the City of Reading, Bella Vista Water District, and ACID, there you have the three largest water rights, the three largest major purveyors here in the basin. And certainly they have been involved. And we have polled the members, and we've been working with them over the years. So I think these are still their goals and objectives. I haven't seen any major deviations.
Well, I believe that they're sound goals, and I absolutely agree, Supervisor Modi, with the concept of developing your goals and objectives before the plan. And so I'm prepared to move forward and approve the staff recommendation. So I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion. I think it's very important that we have some input in this. I mean, we have the largest amount of the water, so we need to have some input into it. If we just sit back and do nothing, then it'll get written without us being, well, we have representatives there, but we won't have our ideas and thoughts in there.
Supervisor Hartman?
And just to reiterate, as you said too, we do have City of Shasta Lake represented and the City of Reading represented, and I think that's important to remember.
And ACID also.
Under discussion then.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I take seriously the comments of my colleagues, and I see them as valid observations. I think if there's one thing that everyone in this room can agree on this morning is that we embrace a common position or a common proposition, and that is the preservation and wise use of our water resources. Having said that, however, it seems to me to be a bit premature for us to make important comments about a document that is in its preliminary stages. Personally, I feel more comfortable in addressing a finalized document than stepping out right now. And I don't see a compelling significance to doing that. So I'm not in a position to support the motion before us this morning.
Well, while I agree that the final document will come back to us for final approval, I'd rather be on the front end of the process rather than the back end where you just pick apart the document, but rather provide some direction and input on the front end to hopefully shape the document that meets the goals of Shasta County. But with that said,
and let me suggest, Chairman Modi, that perhaps there is another mechanism for getting our observations across rather than a formal action by this board.
well, I agree with that. And the other thing, I know that the comments for the goals and objectives supposedly closed today, but when is the next IRWM TAC meeting?
Next Thursday, the 19th, I believe.
Okay. And you serve on the TAC committee?
Yes, I do.
So you could carry our desires and concerns and issues to the TAC meeting?
Yes, I can.
So what I would maybe suggest is that you restart your efforts with the ROC board and ask them to come together before our next board meeting, if you want to see if you at least get some buy-in from them. And I know it's short notice, but you know, I think you just need to put a little pressure on them to have a meeting, and then perhaps maybe bring something back to the board next week that we could do, so we could see that at least they do still support the goals and objectives that are 11 years old. I want to make sure that they still agree with that, and that we support that what they're trying to accomplish in Shasta County.
We're not going to be here next week.
Mr. Lees?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we have no meeting next week. If I could make a recommendation, though, just from what I'm hearing, I think that, you know, the part or the gap that's missing in my mind is that we don't have positive response from all the other organizations locally that should have involvement in this. You know, we've kind of got a nod that, yeah, we don't have anything to add, and so I'm wondering if it might help the board feel a little more comfortable in going the direction that you state as it relates to having Mr. Wiedemeyer represent our views at the next TAC meeting, but in the meantime, over the next couple weeks, ask for a positive response from all the other organizations out there, Bella Vista Water and all these other groups, to say, you know, yes, you want to go with it, or no, you don't, so that when it comes back to the board has a confirmation of the desires of these groups to make sure we're actually representing the entire basin as it relates to that. Just a thought.
Well, it certainly sounds reasonable to me. Mr. Keogh, did you want to add to that, or?
I believe Mr. Lees's observation is right on the mark, and I concur with that.
Well, and I wonder, and I know we have a motion here to vote on, but I guess that what I would ask if staff is at least gotten enough feedback from the 4 members here today as to at least where we stand on the Redding Area Water Council Basin goals and objectives. Do you need some more? Do you need some reaffirmation on that?
I don't think so.
I think I heard it sound to me like all of the board members who were in agreement that our current Redding Area Water Council goals and objectives are still prudent, or is that not correct?
When were those goals and objectives established?
I believe September of 2001.
I see value in maybe revisiting those goals and objectives.
Supervisor Hartman? Well, let me go to County Council first. Maybe he wants to clarify something.
Thank you. No, the only clarification I had is that there was, as you indicated, Supervisor Modi, there is a pending motion on the table, and I think you were going to be talking to Supervisor Hartman. So the only action I was going to suggest is whether to get some sort of resolution on that motion, and then whatever further actions you think are appropriate.
Supervisor Hartman?
I still feel strongly that the goals and objectives are sound, and I am of the mind of wanting to move forward and present our ideas, our goals and objectives at the forefront, and make a strong entrance into the planning. But clearly, my motion may die, so that's how I feel.
Supervisor Haas?
Well, I feel the same way. I probably use a little more water than the average person in the county, and I really believe in protecting those rights. And I don't think that we can just stand back and say nothing and let someone else draw up a plan that doesn't include us. So it's really basic. These things are so broad and so well written. That's why they haven't changed since 2001. they make a statement as to how we feel about our water, and we've always been strong about our water here. I've been on the board all those years, and we've always been strong about our water, and we will continue to be strong on our water if we take some steps and put some input in this. So I'm not going to budge from where I stand either. And I hope I made my case.
Well,
I'll call for the question.
And before you do that, though, just one final comment that I too agree with Supervisor Hartman's statement. I think the goals and objectives from the Reading Area Water Council are sound goals that are good for our community, and we need to continue in that effort.
Can't hear.
Is that any better? So are we turning it up loud? Okay. I just was saying that I agree that with Supervisor Hartman's comments that I think the goals and objectives for the Reading Area Water Council are sound goals and objectives. They're good for our community. They protect our water rights, and they're hopefully make good use of our water in the future. I just would feel a little bit better if the Reading Area Water Council had a chance to visit this issue and give us their affirmation that they still believe that these are those goals. So I know this is going to probably end up deadlocking this thing, but I'm going to, vote against the motion. But I do want to pass along to staff my strong support of the goals and objectives that you can share at the TAC committee. So with that, I'll call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Motion fails. Shasta County Water Agency will adjourn and reconvene as Shasta County Board of Supervisors. R2, administrative report from our county administrative officer, and receive reports from supervisors. Mr. Lees?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Kehoe?
Thank you, Chairman Modi. I attended the regular meeting of LAFCO, and I have the material here in the binder, and it's open for your perusal. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Hartman?
I'll pass, thank you.
Supervisor Hawes?
Oh, just a reminder that today is this second installment of our property taxes are due, so make sure you get them paid, otherwise you end up with quite a heavy fine. Also, we all received a great report from the county fire for the report on last year's events, and there was a lot of them, and we're not quite up to where we need to be with volunteers, but we continue to work on that, and we have some excellent county fire departments all over this county, made up mostly by volunteers, which are very dedicated people and work very hard to keep us fire safe. And the county fire officer was here, and I see Rick left, but I wanted to commend him on the report. It was excellent. And I attended the Sacramento Valley Basin-wide Air Pollution Control meeting down in Willows last Friday. I had been the chair for a couple of years, and we elected a new chair. It was time to change. We're usually there for a couple of years. And our new chair is Supervisor Steve Lambert from Butte County. And we did get the draft report on next year's burn plan, and the burn plans have been going very well. There's very, very few complaints, and this deals mainly with rice straw burning in the fall and the spring. And that area has the rice straw, but sometimes when the air currents are just right, they come to Shasta County, so it affects our air quality. Excuse me, that's why we're involved, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Supervisor Hawes, and I don't have any report today, so we'll move on to item R3, consider adopting resolution expressing support for development of senior housing in Fall River. Ms. Dorney?
Good morning, Chairman Modi, members of the board, Megan Dorney, Administrative Analyst, County Administrative Office. For your consideration is a resolution supporting the development of senior housing in the Fall River Valley. Mr. Ed Siegel, who's making his way up, contacted our office. He's the director of the Fall River Valley Chamber of Commerce, and he asked our office to bring this resolution forward to you for consideration. I wanted to point out there is a minor error on the staff report. This concerns supervisorial district number 3, not number 5. And Mr. Siegel is here to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, supervisors. And lest I forget, I want to thank Glenn Hawes and Larry Lees for bringing up Supervisor Keogh. Fellow Lion offered to introduce this resolution before the Board of Supervisors. Just in a brief explanation of what this is, we have acute care with Mayor's Memorial Hospital in the Fall River Valley, and we have a good hospice program for the end of life. What we're looking for is what's in between independent living and the end of life. And so this particular type of senior housing is designed for assisted living and skilled nursing. And that's what's missing in our valley. I have had a resolution passed by the Community Service District to indicate their support for this type of facility in the valley. I know that one of the questions was, do the people in the valley support this type of program? And they certainly do. The area where I will need assistance, because I'm not an expert in this area, is getting an owner manager with experience to operate this, because from the moment the doors open, this has to meet all the state and county requirements, and we want it to be successful, and we want it to be run properly. Do you have any questions for me?
Supervisor Hawes.
About how many do you think will be living in the facility?
We don't know at this time. This is where the real work begins. If you pass this resolution, then I'll begin to actually get commitments for this. I've already talked to both banks up there, Plymouth Bank and Tri-Counties Banks. They're interested in financing this proposal. We'll obviously need to get contractors and architect and obviously an owner-operator of this facility. If you have any suggestions in that area, I'm certainly open to recommendations. My position in this is to be a catalyst to help to make this event actually occur. And this is a good example of naivety on my part, in the sense that I don't know what I'm facing, but it took me 3 years to get Caltrans to approve a sign at the entrance to the Fall River Valley. So I know these things can be difficult, but I'm prepared to put in the time that it takes to make this actually occur.
Well, I know, and so does Larry, we know that you don't give up, and that's good. And I hope that we get some good press from Mr. Caldwell on this one, too.
All right.
It'd be nice to get some good press. So I'm going to move approval, and I just hope and we have great success with this project. And I'll talk to you about some possible people that might help with this thing.
Thank you.
Okay. Moved in second. Under discussion, Mr. Kehoe.
Thank you, Chairman Modi. Mr. Siegel, thank you for your efforts in support of senior housing. I have one concern, and I'm hoping through your comments this morning that you can assuage my concern. And it's simply this. Some time ago, when this board passed the housing element, there appeared to be substantial criticism of the board action by members of your community in stating they did not want increased housing in the Fall River Valley. Now, specifically, I think that they were concerned about low-income housing.
That is correct.
And so I think you need to very dramatically clarify that this morning. And secondly, I think you've got to talk to us a little bit about this apparent incongruity in the will of that particular community. They don't want to see more people moving in there. At least that was the impression I got in reading those adverse comments.
We've had Mark Lasalas up there from the Economic Development Corporation to address us. And what came out of those meetings in Bernie and Fall River was that what we were looking for was an enhancement to the community, not a radical change, but rather an enhancement. And I want to make it clear that the difference between what we were opposed to and what we're proposing here is we don't think low-income housing works in the Fall River Valley for the reason that there are no transportation facilities, there's no county services available, and there's no jobs in that area. So it basically would be warehousing these people. In this case, we're not asking for the county for any money. What we're asking for is a facility that people that can afford to pay for it will be able to use. One of the things that I personally experienced is that every morning from 8:30 till 10, I meet with a group of 15 or 20, mostly men, some women, at the Lions Hall in MacArthur, and we discuss all the world's problems there, hoping that the phone will ring and somebody will ask us for our opinion. But I noticed that many of the people were moving away, and very often they moved out of the county in order to find this type of facility. A lot of them came up there with purchased 5, 10, 15-acre parcels, and now that same property has become a burden to them in their 80s. And we don't want them to move away, and they don't want to leave the area. So this would make it possible for them to stay. But they're not without funds to pay for this type of service.
So as I understand your explanation then, is you're providing an assisted, or you're proposing to provide an assisted living environment for residents of the Fall River Valley.
That is correct.
And it is not, conceptually, it's not the intent of importing people to the valley, although that may happen on occasion.
That is true.
And just so I understand then, the opposition of the folks to our housing element was they didn't want poor people moving into the valley. That's what you objected to. Is that correct?
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
You know, we're concerned that if you warehouse people in, there's going to be problems.
And I understand.
They need things to do.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel.
Thank you.
I think we have another speaker.
Thank you.
Okay.
I do have a comment. No, I have a question as well, but I think I'm going to let the other speaker. Do you want to speak to?
Oh, yes, I do.
Well, please come up and speak then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, Mr. Kehoe, first I want to say that I find your comments offensive. The people that came here, my name is Susan David, and I am with...
Ma'am?
Yes?
Ma'am, could you need your name, please, first?
Susan David.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm in the Fall River Valley. I came here on that meeting to protest the idea of the high-density housing that you people proposed that would put an additional 700 people into Fall River Valley and an additional 700 to 800 people into Bernie. The idea that it was for extremely low income, it has really, that was your wording. It was not the idea that these people were low income. It was the idea that we didn't have the facilities for an extra 1,400 people in the Intermountain area. It is, I find really strange how you can twist everything around. My mother is now in the Bernie Annex, which holds 48 people in the, quote, skilled nursing, and it costs her $7,800 a month to be in basically a hospital room with 2 beds. And it's like a hospital room that came from, gosh, Napa State Hospital. I mean, that's how old it is and how unwelcoming that facility is. They do a nice job, but there needs to be something different. When Ed was talking about people moving out, that's true. I was a real estate agent there for 13 years, and when people get to a certain age, they can't handle the snow, things happen. The doctor care is down here, so people move. I would like to keep my mother close to me, as I know that a lot of other people would like to keep their parents and relatives close to them, but we could come and put my mother in a place down here for half the price, but that's a 150-mile round trip to go see your relatives. And there's a lot of us who go to see their family members in nursing homes or assisted living that would go on a daily basis. So I think you could figure the cost of just gasoline, a 3-hour ride back and forth every day is a little tough on the families. So to have an assisted living place in the Fall River Valley, we're not asking 1,400 people to be brought in. We're asking for the families that live there to have a choice of a place to bring their relatives and their loved ones, not to bring in the extra low income people who, as Ed said, they're not looking for a job. They're just looking for handouts from the county. I'm sorry, that's what it is. And you guys just want to set them up there. So I am, you have no idea how offensive your remarks were.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
thank you.
You know, I think it's a great opportunity for you as a speaker to congratulate Mr. Siegel for taking the leadership in this arena.
I have. Ed and I have worked together on the chamber, and we've worked together on a lot. Ed knows how I feel about this issue, and that's why I drove down here this morning to make sure that, you know, things were said. So, like I said, though, you're way out of line. Thank you.
Mr. Siegel, I have just a final clarification and question for you. I do support your efforts. I appreciate your making, taking the time and the energy to try to make some improvements for your community, and certainly anytime you can keep your elderly in your community, it's a worthy cause, and I think the board is all the board members are saying that. I do have to agree to some degree with what Mr. Keogh said, although the last speaker talked about offended about the low income, yet I think she just said at the very end that she didn't want low income people up there as well. But those were your words. But what I think of the bigger issue I heard last time was actually high density was the bigger issue of, and this, you know, there is a little more high density obviously when you're, you know, doing assisted living. So I think the concern here is just it's kind of the old comment, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I think what's important here is that we want to work with the Fall River Bernie community area on this, and you're bringing forward a good idea, and I support you in your efforts on that, and I hope we can continue to have additional productive discussions and progress in different areas up there in your community.
Thank you.
So thank you for taking the time. Mr. Haas?
Well, yeah, this is a no-brainer for me. I'm getting older, too. So I tell you, I think it's wonderful if we can get something built there so they don't have to leave. It's the same thing. The farther north you go, the worse it gets. You get over to Alturas, it costs that much or even more to keep someone in the facility. So they're needed badly. So I just hope that we can get it done. And let's get past that issue we had. That was a state mandate in order for us to participate, of which I voted no on because it was my district and I saw what we were getting into there. But it was a mandate on us to do in order to get grant funding, of which some of it paid for upgrading the vets halls up there. So yes, we all have to play the game in order to keep things moving, and sometimes it's not very pleasant. It's offensive to some people, but I'm sorry they feel that way, and I don't see anyone going out and changing the zoning to build any of that up there, and I don't think it will happen for a long time, if ever, because you're right, the facilities to take care of those people are not there. They're more in the larger cities, so I want to see this thing succeed.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Next item, R4, amendments to the Shasta County Code and Personnel Rules changing the title of County Administrative Officer to County Executive Officer, identifying the County Executive Officer's appointing authority. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, Chairman Modi. As the board may recall, at a special meeting on February 27th of this year, the board received a workshop presentation on the board's ability to delegate its appointing authority to the county administrative officer and the CAO's existing authority to supervise, oversee, and evaluate county department heads. After receiving that presentation, the board directed staff to prepare amendments to the Shasta County Code and the Shasta County Personnel Rules that clarify the CAO's role as the county executive officer. Those amendments, in summary, are as follows. The title of the office would be changed from the county administrative officer to county executive officer. This does not substantively change any authority currently provided to the position, but it is a more accurate reflection of the nature of the position. 2, also enhance the supervisory authority of the county executive officer by delegating to him the authority to appoint those department heads currently appointed by the board that are not county officers by law. Those positions would be the Director of Housing and Community Action Programs, the Veteran Service Officer, and the Intermountain Fair Manager. Those positions would be in addition to the department heads that are already currently appointed by the CEO, which are the Director of Support Services and the Chief Technology Officer. And finally, enhance the supervisory authority of the County Executive Officer by authorizing him to appoint those 5 department heads without subsequent ratification by the board. Before you today are county ordinances and designed to effectuate that direction, and also amendments to the county personnel rules to satisfy that requirement as well. In addition, there was some language updated in Chapter 2.12 of the Shasta County Code. That's the section establishing the position of County Executive Officer. What that does is it concerns the provision of financial status reports to the board. That's been updated to reflect the current practice of providing a mid-year financial status report. And the other clarification was to clarify by ordinance that the county executive officer also serves as the clerk of the Board of Supervisors. That was initially done by resolution back in 2002, and this serves to amend the existing ordinance to be consistent with that resolution. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Questions from the board?
Move approval of the staff recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Sort of ironic, isn't it? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The Board of Supervisors will recess to a closed session to discuss the following items. I'll announce first that the case involving the California Department of Transportation versus the County of Shasta has been pulled from the agenda for the closed session. It will be a case of Alvarez versus the County of Shasta, and then also a anticipated litigation of one case. The estimated time for a closed session is about an hour. At the conclusion of the closed session, reportable action, if any, will be reported in open session. We are in recess.